All right, so let's jump right in here. Let's talk about how busy OCR is.
They're pretty busy. We done
All right,
now.
folks, that's our show for today.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 396 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. Good afternoon, Donna.
Hello, David. How you doing?
I'm doing good, girl.
This is when the children are always embarrassed by us, right?
Pretty much anybody we're around.
True that. True that. Spouses, friends, long list of people. For those of you who come to PriceSec Boot Camp, you'll get to see just why they roll their eyes at us.
That's right. That's right. We ain't got too much longer to be talking about this because it's coming up quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just got after this week. This week, next week, and then it'll be over by the 3 weeks from now. By the time this comes out, anyway.
Cool. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to PriceSecBootCamp.com. It is going to be a 3.5 day in-person event, March 12, 13, 14, and 15. And it's going to be in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes, it is.
It's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah. There are people questioning, how am I going to do bourbon and breeches? How could anybody do that? Look, I did Jimi Hendrix and HIPAA. I can make it happen.
Yeah. I think by the last bourbon, we won't care about the breeches.
It'll still be a learning environment.
That's right. Yeah. So that's going to be fun. Can't wait.
I am looking forward to it.
So today we're going to be talking about OCR and the fact that they ain't got nothing to do.
Nothing, honey. Ain't got nothing.
They ain't got nothing to do. So we're going to be talking about how busy they are. And they've got some reports that they've released to Congress. And man, they got a lot going on.
Yes. It's got to be tough to, have so much work and have no real backup plan to get it done.
Yeah, it sounds like every day in my life.
That is small business.
Yeah, it is. So today you're going to get a twofer. You're going to get, we're going to go over the report to Congress on the breach notification program and also the report to Congress on the privacy rule and security rule compliance.
Yes, it's very interesting, one would think.
I know. We're going to hit both of those, and we're going to find out just how busy is OCR.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, dun, dun.
In 2021.
Yeah. So I was going to ask me, how's business? I'm going to ask me next year.
I'll tell you then.
Yeah.
But we have both learned the hard way that it takes time to move massive things.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So much easier when you were just a business of one.
I love to be able to just make a decision, move on.
That's right. All right. Before we get into our topic for the day, we do want to thank those people who are giving to us. Yes, thanks to the donors. Also, thank you for those who give in the way of reviews and likes and everything else on social media, because we like that too. Matter of fact, if you haven't done one, then head on over to your favorite place you listen to this and give us a review. We definitely appreciate it.
Give us a review. We need it.
Give us a review. We do need it. Among other things, we need it. All right, so let's jump right in here. Let's talk about how busy OCR is.
They're pretty busy. We done
All right,
now.
folks. That's our show for today.
I know for a fact, we've talked plenty of times with these folks. And by the way, we'll have HHS folks and OCR folks at the PriceSec Boot Camp. Thank you very much. Yeah, I know, right? But they do have an overwhelming amount of work to do, and it's been that way for a long time. And, they even point out in these reports, which, by the way, the report is titled the 2021 report to, how do they say? It is the annual report to Congress on the, breaches of unsecured protected health information for calendar year 2021. And then the other one's also that. But I went back and looked, and I'm like, why are we not getting 2022? Well, first of all, it's February. I doubt they could have tallied 2022. We're still doing our end of year for 20. So this is possible, not possible. And then I go back and look, and geez, back in 2019, they had to do 15, 16, 17 all together.
I get caught up.
Yeah. So apparently, this is not uncommon, and we'll just go with that. Right?
That is what we'll do.
So in this report, though, we know things have not gotten better. We have watched it for ourselves. We know there's no way it's gotten better. And they do point out that the numbers that we are providing on this report, we're not audited because we don't have the money to pay somebody to audit it. It literally says OCR did not perform any audits in 2021 due to a lack of financial resources. Ow. That tells you. Because they run around like the ducks.
So are they talking about they didn't do any auditing of covered entities and business associates, or they didn't audit this report?
Oh, well, I think it's the audits, because they do go down here later and say, they can't even audit themselves anyway. They don't have the money for any of that, but the OIG, I think, would have to audit the numbers the way it works, but who am I to say? But I do know that some people believe that the numbers is what they're talking about there, where I believe that they are really busy.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get down to the audit thing in a minute. We'll talk about that further.
Okay. Well, you might cover this, but I know we often talk about the difference between the threat and of being audited versus, the investigation piece of it.
Mm-hmm. I do have that covered, because we've done an episode about an audit versus an investigation, blah, blah, blah. And, audits are not a thing. We told that story before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are not a thing.
That's why I always love the people that are like, our clients have never failed an audit. Probably because your clients have never been audited.
Well, they may have, but it hadn't been since 2016?
Yeah.
2017? But that's I do include that, because they say OCR did not initiate any audits in 2021 due to a lack of financial resources, period. And unless you're getting caught up in the investigations or compliance reviews that are initiated some other way, you're not being audited. So the next time you do hear somebody say, so-and-so's never failed an audit, yes, can confirm.
Yeah.
Because they're not doing them.
I think I'm going to do a thing that says, all of my clients passed audits in 2021.
Yes.
Since none of them were done.
Every client that was audited by OCR in 2021 passed with flying colors.
Yeah, all 0 of them.
Mm-hmm. And 2020 and 2019.
Yeah, I know.
2022, we're good with that. So we know they don't have the financial resources to do a lot of things. Because everybody talks about, all of these fines and penalties are just so the government can get more money. Everybody complains that nobody's enforcing HIPAA, and that's where they're supposed to get the money. In theory, if people aren't doing it, then they could do the fines and penalties and make the money to fund the enforcement that would make people do it. Right?
Yep.
That's a theory. It's not an effective one, but it is a theory.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because on our side of the tracks, where we're talking to other people who are trying to teach all this stuff and get people on board with privacy and security programs, you usually hear them say things like, until the fines start getting stiffer, until they start putting in more dollar amounts, and they're not going to get anybody to do anything.
Exactly. So it's a vicious cycle. And here we sit in the middle just trying to get both sides to work together.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen. But we can at least create a balance. I'm a person that prefers like a solid, negotiated middle ground. That's always what I'm searching for. Not always going to work out. Get that? And no, sometimes I'm not good at maintaining that. But we know that's really, and ultimately in any interview, OCR has always said what we want is compliance. We don't want enforcement. We want people to just comply. So I agree. But when you have things like from 2017 to 2021, a 39% increase in complaints and large breaches of 500 plus over the same period, 58% increase. So
the complaints, that almost looks like my marriage from 2017 to 21. There was a 39% increase in complaints.
Yes, and how are you resolving those, David?
Well, I've been put on a corrective action plan.
Repeatedly. And she still stays. But the one thing that they do point out, and they're very careful about, is all of this increase and all of this happened during the time that they recalculated those civil money penalties as far as how much could they, and it's a very complicated, long thing that we haven't, there's no reason in spending a ton of time on it unless you're that kind of nerd. But the bottom line is they now don't get as much money for these cases after this recalculation, they'll say. So they're like, civil money penalties, we bring in less. We got more work to do than we can manage to do it. So, yeah, here's where we are. And we know for a fact that they don't bring in a ton of money for this because we track them. We talk about every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the settlement amounts, they're very low. And this is why I tell people, anybody that's trying to scare you into doing what you're supposed to do because of some $1.5 million fine, don't listen to them. Because the likelihood of that being your number one problem, if something were to happen today, you wouldn't need to worry about that for 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the stuff between now and then, maybe even a year or two, that you would have to deal with this problem. So, no, that you should worry about everything that it costs between now and a year or two after something happens. But they did make a point. They requested help with funding simply by not asking for more money, just asking, could we increase the limit on what we can go after in civil money penalties? And they say OCR requested that the high-tech civil money penalty caps be increased in fiscal year 2023, the blah, blah, blah that was sent to Congress in September 2021. These factors have combined to cause a severe strain on OCR's limited staff and resources. This lack of necessary funding limits OCR's HIPAA enforcement activities during a time of substantial growth in cybersecurity attacks to the healthcare sector. All of that is true. Can confirm. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree.
So when we look at complaints, we always tell people, how do you end up in front of OCR? Somebody files a complaint, you end up in the news, and or you have to report a data breach of over 500.
Mm-hmm.
One of those things happens in every one of the cases that you see. So the complaints year over year in 2021, 25% increase. Now, I thought it was quite telling that there were 34,077 complaints in 2021. And of those, 20,661 were resolved without an investigation. 78% of them.
Huh.
You would want to bet it's because of the people who think they understand HIPAA?
It's probably all those people like, they can't ask me about wearing a mask. That violates my HIPAA.
Uh-huh. Or the calls where, I've helped clients where literally the call comes in saying, I want to talk to HIPAA.
I know. My wife was like, where were you at Friday night? I said, HIPAA?
That comedian that does that bit is hysterical.
I know.
But so many people file complaints over things that clearly did not apply. They didn't even have to do an investigation to say, not a problem. 20,000 of them. But somebody still had to process them, had to evaluate them, had to talk to people and deal with it and send out a letter. Then no investigation took place. I'm pretty sure there was a lot of that. A lot of the people, and we get people that call up and demand somebody's fired for violating HIPAA. Number one, didn't really violate HIPAA. Number two, maybe violated a policy, but doesn't warrant being fired. And you're calling up and demanding it, and you don't even understand it.
Or number three, they don't even work here.
Well, there is that. But they did say that they provided technical assistance in lieu of an investigation, or what they call pre-investigation technical assistance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're the first time you're popping up on the radar, now remember, they're covered up with work. So they're trying to find the most egregious situations. So what they do is they say, look, we're going to send you a question. Can you tell us you're doing this? Somebody's filed this complaint. Are you, we recommend you do this. Please confirm or whatever. And people go, oh yeah, we're doing that. No big deal. And that's the end of it. For over 4,000 of those remaining investigating that they didn't do an investigation. 714 of the cases took corrective action on their own. That is the stuff we encourage people to do. The minute something, and you realize, ooh, I haven't been doing what I was supposed to be doing, because sometimes people truly are not paying attention. Now, should they? Yes. Are they? No. When they realize it, they make immediate changes. Those are good things.
Yep. Send yourself to your room.
Well, those cases are great. So then you start getting down to the ones, there's technical assistance after an investigation was done. There was only 89 of those. They had 13 complaints that actually ended up with resolution agreements and corrective action from a complaint. And those settlements ended up $815,000. That's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket of what it costs to manage these. Yeah. Probably didn't pay for the ones that they paid for.
So you got $815,000 to cover 34,077 investigations.
Yeah, and then there's two where there was really fines applied, but those were totaling actual civil money penalties, $150,000. Again, there's no $1.5 million anywhere in here. Now there's some big money, but it goes related to where you land in egregiousness as well as extensive capabilities that you didn't deal with. So of the ones where they did actual compliance reviews, 573 actual reviews in 2021. That's still a lot when you think about what these things require. And we've talked about them many, many times. There's a lot of questions and a lot of evaluation and a lot of back and forth and a lot of phone calls and emails. So of those, 554 originated from breach reports. This is what we always tell you. So 554, about the number of 500 plus breaches. And then 19 originated from other means. Those could come from complaints or showing up in the news. We've talked about those. Make the news, you're on.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get excited. Oh, we've got coverage. Oh, not that kind of coverage. Don't want that kind of coverage. So the actual cases where there were some sort of corrective actions done, but then the big ones, the two big ones where they actually did have real money totaled $5 million. So, I mean, basically around $6 million in 2021 enforcement dollars. That's not a lot.
No, it's not even enough to build Lee Evans.
Okay, I'm moving on. But they did release a ton of money about the things that they were doing. And one of the things that shows up in these reports that we don't get to see are the breaches under 500. Everybody talks about the over 500. There's been, let's see, 2021, 609 breaches of 500 plus. Final number. My final answer.
Mm-hmm.
Then, under 500 breaches in 2021 that were reported, 63,571. But here's the thing. I guarantee you that's way underreported number.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I've already had people that just in 2023 where I had to explain to them when you're supposed to report. It's like, oh, I only have to report it 500 or more. No. Then they think, that's wrong. And then they say, well, I need to report everything anytime I evaluate something. No, you only report when you tell a patient. HHS wants to know about it. Mm-hmm. If you need to tell a patient. But that doesn't mean...
So if you have a breach and you don't tell the patient, then you don't have to tell OCR. Is that right?
Right, unless they catch you.
Unless they catch you. Yeah, I mean, you and I both know of more than a couple of breaches that occurred that should have been reported and never got reported. So I don't know what the real number would be. I'm skeptical. I'm going to say the number of reported breaches is less than half.
Well, I would really say happened? It's at least 100,000.
Yeah.
Which is, another 50%. But when you look at those numbers and you know what's really happening in the world, the number of people who think, and I've literally had people, and I was like, make sure, hey, it's the end of February. It's time for you to make sure you have filed your one-off breaches if you hadn't already done it. Okay? Simple. And then they're like, well, we don't ever have any. We've never reported any. Well, what? I mean, if you've never reported anything, it's time for you to go and learn what you're supposed to report.
Yeah.
Because you mail an EOB to the wrong person. You might need to report that. Mm-hmm. You hand the wrong information to the wrong patient. You might need to report that. And the statistical likelihood of any kind of medical facility that never has any of that over the years, ever, I don't even think that if it's above zero, I would doubt it.
Well, we've mentioned this before that OCR, unless something's changed, OCR looks at the fact that you've not reported anything as being a red flag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if all of a sudden you have a 500 plus and they've never heard from you before.
Yeah, it's like,
let's ask some more questions. And what's really interesting is when you have a conversation with somebody and, oh no, we've got this covered. I think we're doing everything we're supposed to do. Okay, great. Well, you need to ask a few more questions. You say, well, how many did you report last year? Oh, that we don't ever have to report. We've never had to report. So this never happens? Oh yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah. They think they've got it until you start asking detailed questions. And they're like, oh, well,
Wait a minute.
Maybe we don't got it.
Oh yeah, I've actually like people were like, where do I sign up with your stuff in the middle of one of those conversations? Like, you didn't understand that? I mean, that's been that way since, I don't know, 2009.
That's new, Donna. That must have come out like, with the new presidency or something. That was not part of HIPAA before 2020.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's been since high tech.
We've heard that one before, though.
I know. We've heard it many, many times. We've heard it all. So there's your HIPAA say what for today. HIPAA say what? You have to analyze individual potential privacy breaches. And statistically, they even have charts on this. The vast majority of them have to do with paper. Like a huge number have to do with paper if it's less than 500.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen it happen with like a spreadsheet. It gets emailed to the wrong place. Those kind of things do happen, but the most of the time it's a piece of paper that ended up lost or not where it's supposed to be. So for those of you who are just learning at this moment, I encourage you to go to PriceActBootcamp.com and sign up.
Yeah. But you better hurry.
Right. Depends on when you're listening to this, it may be over. But that is their enforcement, and they're talking about what they're finding, and they're getting a ton of stuff coming in, and they only have limited resources to be able to evaluate just based on the volume that's coming in, much less them actually doing audits and going out and searching for how the industry is doing. They don't have time for that. They don't have funding for that. So there you go. That is the report on of compliance and enforcement. But then we have data on the actual breaches.
Yeah. Let's figure out what's going on.
Stay out of my breaches, David.
How do people get into my stuff?
A lot of stuff gotten into. I mean, when you're looking at these numbers, 609, 500 plus, and they investigate every one of those. We know that. They've said it repeatedly over the years. The good news is from 2020, that was a whopping 7% decrease.
What?
But I don't know if it decreased in 2022. I'm pretty sure it went back up again.
Yeah.
Because I think it ended up being like 49 million people in 2022, and it was 37.1 in 2021.
Yeah.
Yes. But as you pointed out, 75% of reported breaches came from
hacking / IT incident.
Yeah, that's it. On network servers.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the number one thing. Network servers.
So people are hacking the network and getting to the network server, which is why we have millions of patients' data exposed. Because millions of patients' data sit on the network servers.
Yep.
But, I mean, a massive amount of activity, and those, again, I feel not as much as the under 500, but I do feel it's still underreported.
Well, I do want to point out, and you can see this in our show notes, but we're only hitting the top, big numbers here. But the network server was number one at 57% of the breaches. You guess what number two was? Email.
Oh, of course. Yes, silly me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
email.
Where's that chart? I don't want to fail the test.
So email was the next biggest one. So, and then, from there, if you look at it, it goes to paper came after that. And then we also have the electronic medical records and desktop computer and then laptop computer. Those are smaller, much smaller. You're only looking at 3% and 1%. And then 2% is other. So I don't know what that would be.
Yeah, Lord knows. But I bet if we go back and we pull these numbers from when we started this podcast, almost 8 years ago.
Yeah.
That is completely different. The laptops and the desktops were huge back then.
Mm-hmm.
And now, whole different ballgame. But we kept saying, this is getting worse, people. Pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think we did back then. Who knows what we said back then, David? I haven't gone to listen to us in a while.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's one of those things when you look at the network server piece of it, so many people are moving to the cloud, and then they're saying, well, we don't need to do anything anymore. We've talked about this as well. We don't have to do HIPAA because our EHR is in the cloud and they're doing our HIPAA for us. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you absolutely have no idea what you're supposed to be doing if that's your answer.
No, none. And trying to have a conversation with those people, if you hear that answer, do you pause and say, how much am I going to review? What am I going to do?
Yeah, because I feel like, okay, now I've got to give you $1,000 worth of free consulting just to get you to understand.
Yeah, I totally understand that, man. Yeah. Well, let me ask you 4,000 questions and then tell you cost too much. Okay, thank you. But for the most part, there is a big gap still between people understanding how you're supposed to secure things in the cloud. How are you supposed to make sure that you're following privacy and security standards when everything is outside your office? The all of the devices, you don't even see them.
Mm-hmm.
And so what had happened is always how it starts, right? Or my favorite one is full disclosure. And I'm like, oh no. We're having to complete a OCR questionnaire. Awesome. I'm not going to help you with that unless you pay me separately. But I will help you with fixing what you got going on here. So I think that big picture of looking at these breaches, even though it's 2021, just like you said, how many people don't even understand they're supposed to do this stuff?
A lot.
Yeah. And we try.
Nobody's listening though. Not our listeners. They know exactly what to do. They'll have to share this with somebody else that doesn't know that.
This is like when you and I both go on a rant. You're preaching to the choir.
No, don't give me a choir robe.
I think I stand in the back waving. But when we look at these numbers, and we know they aren't getting better, and we know OCR doesn't get extra funding to do these things, we know it's not there, and we know there's always this juxtaposition between, oh, regulations, blah, 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 and why didn't you protect my stuff? They have to coexist. So please encourage those around you, because our listeners do understand this. Encourage those around you to not believe that you know everything. Like we always say, we don't even believe we know everything. I always double check and triple check myself if somebody questions something, because maybe I don't know. Maybe I missed something. But so many people believe that they are spot on, and they use the 1.5 million and they're going to come after you. No. What's going to come after you is the patients that are going to do the class action lawsuits, or even the one-off lawsuits get very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even have to worry about the lawsuit if you can prove you're doing what's reasonable and appropriate.
Or if you're HIPAA certified.
Oh, jeez.
All right, okay. For you new listeners, that's a joke.
Go back. There's plenty of discussions about it. I just wasn't ready for that. I didn't see it coming. I saw him thinking, and I should have realized something's coming. But anyway, you did point out, because you were writing this part. Thank you, David, for writing this part. that OCR did have a whole section on lessons learned, that things that needed improvement, and nothing was surprising to me.
Mm-mm.
And I'm trying to find where you because you put it in here. I know you did. I saw you because I was about to put it in, then I found yours. In particular, the security rule.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Thank you for highlighting. The security rule and implementation specifications of, I know, everybody there, say it with me, risk analysis.
Yeah, that thing you're supposed to do first.
And if you do it wrong, nothing else goes well.
Yeah.
And then you have risk management that you do based on the risk analysis. And then information system activity review, audit controls, and access controls.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these are pretty much, do your risk analysis and your risk management properly, which would then tell you need to do monitoring, which is information system activity review, is monitoring what's happening on your network, your EHR, so on and so forth. Audit controls, meaning actually check to see if stuff's happening and working. We don't see anything in our triggers. Oh, somebody's turned off the monitoring tool. We've seen that happen, haven't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was like years ago back when I wrote electronic claim software. Yes, I've done that too. And we had this thing that would automatically evaluate the answers we were getting from the payer and it would kick out a thing that said, hey, there's a problem with this. Somebody needs to look at it. And it would go to back then you did paper and you'd have things that were on reports and, it would be on a screen, but it would be on there with other things. Well, all of a sudden, this has been going on for a couple of weeks. And when you do that, that impacts cash flow. And it's one of the many times where people are yelling at me, something's wrong with the computer because we're having a cash flow problem. And then I go do my investigation and I find out that I have been telling people, the computer has, which I wrote the program. I've been telling them there's something wrong. They need to deal with it. And it was very specific, but everybody ignored it. And I've had those things happen multiple times. And the administrators who are excited to see the results of my investigation always have entertaining responses. I think my favorite is when she banged her head on the table, just slammed her head on the table. Not really hard, just enough to make it funny. And then and another favorite was just this pause and well, that's impressive. But it's the exact same thing. Exact same scenario. That's impressive. Nobody's looking. And then access controls. Why did I need access to everything?
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you go in and they say, well, everybody needs access to everything all the time?
Yeah. Or they got, I got a guy, IT person who comes in and, everybody's admin, everybody has access to everything because you know what? It works.
It's so much easier that way.
That's the thing about it is people go, you say, do you have any problems with your IT? No, everything works fine. Okay, but that doesn't mean everything's right just because it works fine.
Do you really know that it's working?
Yeah. What is the commercial? I can't remember what it's for, but the guy's like, I really appreciate you oversharing. I really appreciate you leaving your data open to me.
It's one of those identity theft ones, but it is good. It's kind of creepy, but I do like it. Mm-hmm. You're so kind.
Yeah, you're so kind to share your passwords.
So, as you point out, what's funny is that your sentence, and I read it, and I forgot to say, David, we should change this because we talk about audit controls and access control, and then you say, if you want to know what you should be auditing, First, you got to be auditing. But there you go. That's a priority list. But there are some really good things in these reports. And of course, we have links to them. And they try to make it very clear. What's the definition of a breach? What are the notifications? How you're supposed to do this? When? What happens if a business... All the things that are in the law.
Yep.
They reiterate it in these reports so that whoever happens to read them will at least understand that, you hope.
Yeah, so you don't have to look at the report and then go, okay, now I go back and look and try to figure out what the definition of a breach is. No, it's already there. They put the quick reference guide right there for you.
Yeah, there's plenty there. It's just like all these reports. We keep telling you, I know they're boring. I know they're dull, but there's great information in there.
Yeah, that's why we do these entertaining episodes, so you don't have to sit through the boring and dull.
Oh, good golly, Miss Molly.
All righty. That is our show today, folks. We hope you learned a lot. And if you're from OCR, I know you're not doing anything, so give us a call. Put you on the show. Remember for Donna and myself that HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.